This is the third in our series of videos about creating an end-tier application in C#. Last time we talked about setting up the business rules class. Now we're going to talk about the data access class. I added this new class here, testDB, onto the UML diagram. You don't absolutely need testDB, but it's good practice to have it. In this particular application, I only have one table, so I could actually take this, take the functionality that exists in testDB and put it into UserDB. However, if I have more than one table, it's a good idea to isolate to where I'm getting my connection information from, so that I don't have to change that connection application in every single table. So, I mean, I could have conceivably 15, 20, 100 tables, and instead of going in and changing it in every individual data access class, I only need to change it in one particular place. So, let's set up testDB, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to go over here, and in my class library, so this is the second tier. This is our GUI tier, presentation tier. Here's our second tier, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say project and add class, and the class that I want to add is testDB. Okay, this is going to be the place where I'm going to isolate how I'm going to get my information. So this is going to be a static class. Okay, and in the static class, I'm going to need to have a SQL connection. So I'm going to have to say I want to use system.data.SQL client. Okay. Once again, previous videos have gone through all of these things, so go back and review them if this is going a little bit too quickly for you. We're just going to concentrate on end-tier right here, because if we concentrated on everything else, this would be hours long. At any rate, what I need inside of testDB is I need a static SQL connection. Static. Let me spell correctly. SQL connection. And I'm going to call this get connection. Again, this is coming from our UML diagram. And what I want to do here is I want to set up a connection string. Okay, so this connection string, remember, I get from connectionstrings.com. Again, refer to previous videos. And then I'm going to say SQL connection, and I'm just going to call this connection. And I'm going to instantiate this to be a new SQL connection, and I'm going to use the connection string that I just created. And then I'm going to return connection. So it's simple as that. Again, what this does is it isolates, connection, not connection string. All right, so what this does is it isolates the connection information in one place so that I can get it and retrieve it from this particular location. All right, let's go over now to UserDB and see how we're going to use that. So the first thing I'm going to do over here in UserDB, I'm going to need to have system.data.SQL client here as well, but I'm also going to be using a data set So it's going to make this a lot easier if I use a system.data as well, so that I don't have to specify that all the time. Okay, so having done that, I'm going to set up, this is going to be a public static class. Okay, and I'm going to create a static SQL connection. And I'm going to call this underscore user connection. And I'm going to say that that's going to be equal to testdb dot get connection. Oops. Dot. Oh, I don't. I'm sorry. I forgot over here. This has got to be public so that I can use that. This again needs to be public. All right, now I'm going to go back over to UserDB, and now I should be able to see get connection. Okay, so basically I am getting my connection from this testDB that I just set up. Like I said, it will make things a whole lot easier later. I'm also going to need a SQL data adapter, and I'm going to call this user data adapter. And I want to instantiate this. Okay, and I will need a data set. And I'm going to call this data set. I'm going to call this user data set. I'm going to instantiate this as well. Okay. One other thing that's going to be useful for me is going to be a data table. And so I'm going to create a data table variable, and I'm just going to call this a user data table. I don't need to instantiate this because I'm going to set that up later. All right. And now the next thing I need to put in here is a few constants. I'm going to define symbolic constants because I'll be using them later, and if I make a mistake in spelling, this sort of reduces the chance of me making a mistake in spelling later. So I'm going to say a constant, and this is all of these are going to be constant strings. And the first one is going to be user, and this is going to be the name of users, and this is going to be the name of the table. So this is, and the name of the table, remember, from our diagram, from our entity relationship diagram, is users. Okay, the next constant string that I want to create is going to be, I want to create constant strings for each one of my fields. So here there's going to be an ID, that's going to be ID. There's going to be a email, that's going to be equal to email. The name of another field, and then the final field name is name. That's going to be equal to name. Once again, this is just going to make it easier later so that I'm not going to make as many spelling mistakes. Okay, having created this, what I want to do is I want to set up a constructor for UserDB. So the way that I do that is I'm going to say static, and then UserDB, parentheses, parentheses, of course, it's a constructor. And now, what do I want to do inside of my constructor? Well, one of the things I want to do is I want to set up my data adapter. So I'm going to have a private, and again, this is going to be a private static method, and it's going to be void. There's nothing that it's going to return, and it's going to be called setup adapter. Okay, and inside here, I'm going to use all my SQL commands in order to set up my data adapter. And right now, I'm only going to concentrate on the select. Later videos will talk about other particular ways. They'll talk about the inserts, updates, and deletes. But we'll just right now concentrate on the select. And so here, I want this to be select, and now I want the names of the fields that I want. I need ID, email, and name from users. Okay, again, so here I put my select command in a constant called select. Now what I want to do is I want to set up a select command. So SQL, what I want to do next is set up a SQL command object. So here I'm going to say SQL command, and I'm going to call this select command, and I'm going to instantiate that to be new SQL and then I'm going to give it the SQL command, which is what I just defined here, and then I need to put the connection in, and that of course is user connection that I've set up above. Okay, so now if I put a comma in here, all those red lines should disappear, and let's see if it does or not. Maybe I'll start typing something else in. And then the next thing that I want to do is this, so for my user data adapter dot select command, I want that to be equal to the select command object that I just built. Once again, all of this stuff is explained in other videos. Oh, this is not select.length, that's the problem. Just select user command. Okay, so what have I done? I've set up my SQL statement here. I've set up my command object, and I've linked that command object into the data adapter. And now here I'm going to say set up adapter so that I get everything all set up. Now what I want to do is this. I want to create another method called fill. So this is going to be again a public method. I'm sorry, not fill, called load. And it's going to be called public, it's a Boolean called a load. And this will have as its parameters a list of user objects called on my user list. And the next parameter it will have in it is a string called error. Okay. All right, user has a capital letter. Okay, so that is load, and what I'm going to do in load is I'm going to call, I'm going to fill my data set, and so the way that I do that is I'm going to say user data adapter dot fill, and then I want to use a data set here, and so the data set that I have is called user data set, and I want to give it a table name as well, because otherwise, remember, it just has a table name of user 1, user 2, etc. And so this will be users. Okay, that's the name of my table. The name of my table is called users. Okay, so I've filled this all up, and then I'm going to right now just do return true. Okay, I'm going to come back and do more about this later, but for right now, that's all that I'm going to be doing. Oh, one more thing. I'm going to do a try and put all of this stuff inside of the try, because that makes sense to do all of, whenever I'm working with a database, I want to keep it inside of a try catch, because there's lots of things that can go wrong when working with a database. And then I want to catch, and if I get an error, an exception of some sort, okay, what I want to do is I want to set error equal to ex.message, and then I want to return false. Now, I will want to return the value of error, so I'm going to say out string error. I want to return that. And let's see, what's the problem here? Oh, error must be defined, so here I'm going to say there's not going to be any error in this case. All right, and then return true. Okay, so how do I hook that up now to the screen that I'm using? So let's go back to the form, and I'm just going to do something very simple right now. We're going to do something more complex later, but right now I just want to put on a simple list box. I'm just going to keep its list box name to list box 1, because all I want to do is I just want to report information inside of the list box. And this is going to happen at form load time, so I'm going to double click on the form so I get the form load event. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to use those user database class, the load method that I just created here. And in order to do that, of course, I'm going to need some variables. I'm going to need a list of a user, but I can't seem to find user. Why can't I find user? Now, this is the whole key to using end-tier selection, end-tier processing, is that I have to set a reference. Now, used to be that everything was contained in the same tier. Now there's two different tiers. Here's my dynamic link library, and here's my GUI. I need to refer over here to user class library. So the way that I need to do it is I need to go here and say add reference, and then click on user class library so that I'll be able to use user class library. Now, I could type in, at this case, time, user class library dot user db, let's say, but you know, that's sort of not the thing that I want to do here. So instead of doing that, instead of typing that in all the time that I want to use any class over there, I'm just going to say using user class library. That way I don't have to keep typing in user class library all the time. The other thing I noticed over here is that user needs to be public so that it can be seen. So I'm going to make this class a public class. Now I'm going to go back to Form 1 and hopefully I'll be able to do the things that I want to do right now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make a list. List of user, and finally I do have user so that I can make it, and this I'm going to call my user list. Okay, and I will instantiate that equals new list of users. So I'll instantiate that. I'll need an error message called string. And that's where I'll keep my errors. And now what I want to do is I want to use that database. So I'm going to say if userdb dot fill userdb dot load, not fill. And load doesn't work either. So I'll go back over here and I will see that it's public Boolean, but I didn't make it static, and that's why it doesn't show up here. So I'm going to go back over here again, and I'm going to say dot load, userdb dot, dot load. And here I'm going to put in my user list. And then comma error. Out. Error, of course. So if that happens, I'm going to do something. Right now I'm not going to do anything, mainly because over here I haven't done anything really in the load part of things. I've just tried to fill up this users. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this and see if it works. Oh, the other thing I want to do here is I just want to say else. Then I'm just going to do message box dot show ERROR. Okay, so what happens here? There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to run this program and see what happens. So it goes out and compiles and nothing happens. Well, actually things really did happen, although they're sort of behind the scenes. I really didn't see what happened, but fortunately nothing happened. I'm just going to show you what happened. Suppose I misspelled test or didn't do something here. So if I run the program now, it says it attempted to find this and it failed. So the fact that nothing happened, because I didn't really code for anything to happen, but the fact that nothing happens, if I get it right, I know that things are working out pretty well. All right, so there's a lot to process right here. What I've done is I've set up this testDB where I have a place where I can get the connection for testDB in one particular location. This is good form. Wasn't absolutely necessary in this case, but if I have more than one table in my database, this is going to be essential. And then over in UserDB, I used this in order to create a SQL connection. And then I created a constructor that sets up the very simple adapter, just sets up one property of the data adapter, which is the select command. And then I use that data adapter to fill up my data set. Next, what I'm going to do is say, how do I go from a data set to my list of objects? And that will happen in the next in the series of this video.